Show us.
Sales
line up to give you their money.
revenue hysteria. It's quantum physics.
It's a skill.
Want to disclose a hidden secret?
We zero in on sales.
Let's talk about sales.
Sales first.
It's crucial, and they talk about the product, but never about sales.
Product is terrific. Nobody's buying it. So I had to invent a different kind of selling.
Your passion, your obsession with your business.
With it, you can't lose. Without it, you can't win.
I get the founders all the time coming over and saying, hey, I love my product, and they talk about the product, but never about sales, right? And when I hear that, I say, don't waste my time, because sales strategy is not optional, it's crucial. So let's talk about sales. Why no one talks about it except us?
Natalia?
Well, I would say sales is absolutely critical. If I, and I always tell that to the founders, when I see them, I say, if you cannot sell, because it's a skill. In some regard, it's a science and you can learn, but there is some art to it. But I always tell them, if you cannot sell, then get a co-founder who can sell. Or get the first employee, founding employee, whom you reward very generously, who can sell. Because you just cannot build a successful business if the founder cannot sell. It's a critical skill. You can see if the founder has the sales skills or not. Because you selling us as investor, you selling us your presentation, okay? How enthusiastic you are, how persuasive you are. Do you convey the sense of urgency? Is there a lot of passion in what you carry on in your presentation? It comes through. When we talk about sales, be prepared to answer these tough questions, because typically when founders present to us, this is the first topic we always zero in. We zero in on sales. How do you shorten your sales cycle? Who's selling? What are the key objectives, objections that you have to overcome that your clients are asking? How is your sales stream structured? How are you thinking of scaling sales? I think these are the key questions. Show us during the presentation that you yourself, you can sell us, investors, your idea, your passion, your obsession with your business.
Totally agree, and there's a couple of quick things that I might try to add to it. There are a lot of contradictions in the world of startups, and I think we're going to cover a few of them. One of the most glaring contradictions is our product is terrific. Nobody's buying it, okay? So let's be honest with ourselves for just a second. Product minus sales equals zero. It causes us to say, well, how great is our product? There is human nature that's involved, because everybody who's technological or analytical loves to work on technical and analytical problems. Sales problems are just as challenging, but they're different. And we have less confidence to go into the sales challenge than we have the technology, but want to disclose a hidden secret. As an investor looks at your pitch, the one thing they want to see is show me monthly sales over the last 6 to 12 months and number of customers underneath that, and what it will be in the next 6 months. And I'll tell you why. You can tell us anything about your technology that you want. And I don't have a team of technical analysts to tear your product apart to find out whether that's true or not. That's just reality. And if you have that and no sales, then I'm in no position to make a decision. But if you have sales, that means somebody other than you actually believes in the product. Second thing, though, is sales is not just sales. Sales is your best form of market research. You can have conversations with customers, you can do surveys, but if there is nobody who will pay full price for what you're offering them. That's the most important signal from the market you can get. And it has two outcomes. One, if they don't buy it, why? Don't walk out of the meeting without understanding why. How do I have to improve my product, my service, my information, or my terms of contract to help this person buy something that they need? What's more challenging, if you do sell successfully, find out why. What caused that person to cross the threshold to buy your product? The sale is the first step of building a relationship of trust with the customer. Why? Because if you do that well, they're going to buy in 3 months. They'll buy in 6 months. They'll buy in 9 months. But even more importantly, they will become a sales rep for you. We devote tons of time to the product improvement. If we devoted that time and energy to the sales process, the odds of success of our business increase dramatically.
Yeah, and if I may add to that, it helps you twofold, right? Because on one hand, the sooner you can show the sales traction, the sooner you're ready to go to investors. And then the more you sell, the less you have to give to get from the investors, right? The lesser pie of your equity you have to give away. So it's only to your advantage to address sales as quickly as possible. And it is a mentality, right? You have to have a sales mentality. There is one feature that I was able to discern over all these years observing the salespeople that unites them, and that's the sense of urgency. Successful salespeople respond within an hour. I don't know what day and time it is. Could be night, whatever time's zone is. Sometimes I wonder how they do it. Responding quickly, catering to client, needs, questions quickly. That already predisposes you as a client to deal with you and makes you very likable. And you have to be likable to be in sales.
So you have this syndrome of you have some sales, and then you relax, okay? And then all of a sudden you panic 4 or 5 months later, and the people who are really good at that say after the successful sale, the next event, 2 to 3 weeks down the road, is revenue hysteria. When do we build the urgency to make sure that the third quarter will be good and the fourth quarter will be good? It breaks my heart when talented people spend hundreds of hours chasing financing that they should have gotten from sales. Not only do you need less financing, so if you're worried about your equity, think about sales first. But secondly, the less you need it, the more independent you are. Get revenue early. Why? You'll need to spend less time running around for financing and more time focusing on the customer, number one. And number two, at the extreme case, which I would advise everybody to go to in this situation, you achieve independence because if your cash flow comes from sales, you will get financing when you want it, not when you need it, and the terms will be entirely different. So sales is a tricky thing because we think it's just sales. No, it's market research. It's distribution of power. It's building relationships of trust. It's building your best sales force of people who have experienced that you really add value to them, and they love to talk to others about it because you've created a good story. And in the end, it is creating independence of action for you, your company, and your team. So this thing called sales deserves every bit as much intellectual, emotional energy and attention because with it, you can't lose. Without it, you can't win.
Oh, absolutely. So maybe we can give entrepreneurs who watch us and founders some advice. If you think that you don't like sales or you're not good in sales, and it's such a critical skill to have as a founder, as an entrepreneur, maybe we can give them some advice how to get there.
Super. you have to learn it yourself. Don't expect anybody to teach you. You have to learn it by trial and error. At the beginning is always hard and hurtful and humiliating. And number three, you kind of have to know yourself. There are people who are very good at sales, naturally. They develop rapport instantaneously. They are excellent at human relations. It's something that they love to do as long as they have a good product to sell it. There are other people who are more technical or more analytical where they don't feel comfortable selling because they don't know that skill. And I was in that position. So I had to invent a different kind of selling, call it analytical selling. First, you need to understand the urgency, okay? If I don't sell, no one's going to pay the team, okay? So it's not this person or that person. You have to accept that it's me and I have to figure out how to do it. Never go to a customer without understanding their business as well as they do and coming up with 2 or 3 things that they didn't know about their business. And don't tell me it can't be done because just talk to a dozen customers and you will find out things that the buyer, the CEO, whoever, is fascinated to find out because you've done the homework and you've shown the respect that you're trying to understand their business. And number 2, be able to explain in economic terms, if it's B2B, or in consumer dynamics, if it's a consumer product, how much value is created and of what kind? Do I save you money? Do I save you capital? Do I save you cycle time? Do I save you training time so that you don't have to hire the most experienced workers? Where does the value come from for the customer and how big is that value? If we see a sales curve that isn't growing month to month to month, we worry. Now, if you're a giant company, it's very hard to grow from month to month to month. But in the startup world, it's quantum physics. It's little particles. And if those little particles aren't dynamic when they're small, why should I believe that they'll be dynamic when they get bigger?
So you have to be obsessed with a problem or with a customer? What comes first?
Oh, they're inseparable. There is a problem generically, yes? But it is when that problem is understood in the customer's reality that you really start to have a conversation going. And at some point in that conversation, the customer wants to start helping you and say, hey, you should go see this person in my organization, the head of manufacturing, because now they're motivated to work collaboratively with someone who has paid them the respect of understanding their business.
So when we talk to a lot of the founders and we go through tens or hundreds of pitches, we say don't go after investors, go after customers. Because if you have the customers, you don't have, to sell as much to the investor. You have to sell to the customer. Then investors pile up to, line up to give you their money. And that's what we see all the time.
Even more than that, Ivana, that is exactly right. It is this furnace, this cauldron of working with customers, viewing it not as a transaction, but a relationship. Because if you get the customer for 6 months, you failed, okay? Because you're going to have to replace that revenue, okay? And the cost of that, believe me, is tremendous. But once you've crossed that line and said, well, this is a long-term relationship, this has to be value-added and measurable value-added to the customer, then you can begin to understand a critical fact that almost never happens. The investor is a customer.
Most of the startup founders have technical background, so it's easier for them to talk about the product, to talk about the tech, because they love it. They wake up with it, they go to sleep with it, they live it. Sales is something that you have to master, and it's oftentimes very tough.
So I'm glad you mentioned this because 2 key points. Sales, unless you're a natural born salesperson, and there are people like that, is getting out of your comfort zone. And this is a big statement because I've had a chance to work with CEOs of tech companies who are extraordinary people, brilliant, charismatic, but were scared to death of going to talk to the CEO of a retail firm because they didn't know retail. Let's step back for a second and say, why are we doing this? We're doing this because we love Ukrainian startups, because we've seen hundreds of pitches, because we've invested in more than 24 companies. But on the side, we can see things that it's very difficult to see, that are easily missed. Nobody talked about value added, let alone how much value added. Nobody talked about sales. Sales is as demanding a discipline as the product. When you count the human factor, it's probably more demanding than the product because your customer has a career. They have an emotional profile. There are things that they want to have. And so our goal is to help people who have gotten a good start, who had the courage and the guts to start up a company, to recognize where they are today and what are maybe a half a dozen specific things that they could do, mindsets and tools and ideas to dramatically increase their probability of success.